Hello everyone, welcome to True Horror Anecdotes. Enjoy. I went to a party when I was around 21 years old, but my memory is a bit fuzzy because it happened about 15 years ago. But I remember this incident very well, as it was one of the scariest times of my life, and that feeling has stuck with me. It was my cousin's graduation, after party. She had just finished school and threw a party at her house. My parents gave me a ride to the party, but I thought they would be asleep when I wanted to go home. There were some guys, girls, and even some parents who stayed up with us. After we celebrated her graduation with food and cake and had a crazy night, we thought it would be a good idea to play more games until about 3 in the morning. Then, at 3, I thought it was time to go home. Some of the girls stayed at my cousin's place, but I don't like sleeping at other people's houses, not even my aunt and uncle's. I think my aunt and uncle might have thought I was staying over because I left without telling them. Also, I don't think they would have let me leave alone, even though I was an adult. So at 3 a.m., which is technically towards the end of the night or early morning, I was about to leave. It was summertime, and it was still pretty humid, so I wasn't wearing much. I had a dress on with a skirt that went just above my knees. I said a kind of slurred goodbye to my cousin, congratulated her, and waved to everyone else staying the night. About 10 people decided to stay because they couldn't drive home, and only a few of us lived close by. My house, or my parents' house, was about a 10-minute walk away, and it was maybe 3 or 4 blocks from the party. They've moved since then, and I can't quite remember the exact distance. So I waved goodbye, walked down the driveway, closed the door, and left them to continue partying for maybe another hour or two. As I walked down the sidewalk, everything seemed okay. I tried sobering up by taking deep breaths, as the air inside the house was kind of heavy with all the candle smoke and partying. I had a bottle of water and was trying to take small sips, but I remember my walk home being pretty wobbly because of the alcohol. It seemed like my body wasn't cooperating well, not moving fast or in the right way. After a while, I managed to get about halfway, or maybe a quarter of the way home. I had been walking for at least 4 or 5 minutes. I was really tired and confused, and all I wanted was to reach home. The neighborhoods were quiet because everyone was asleep. It was dark, but the streetlights were on, lighting up spots every 10 to 15 meters on the road. I was stumbling, walking kind of crooked, holding my plastic bottle of water and my bag in the other hand. I thought I was about halfway or something close to that by now. I recognized most of the houses in the area, but I didn't really know the people living in them. I wasn't very social, and I only knew my 2 neighbors on either side of my parents' house. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, I got halfway there, and suddenly, I heard a dog making grunting sounds in someone's yard. You know how people have fences on the side of their yards leading to the backyard? Well, for some reason, the gate in the fence was open, and because I was drunk, I didn't really pay much attention to it. But looking back, I should have. The dog was making grunting sounds, so I thought maybe I'd woken it up. But I soon noticed the dog wasn't tied to the fence. Then I noticed that this dog was huge. It seemed like a Belgian shepherd, similar to a German shepherd, but all black. They look cool, but they can be dangerous too. And this dog in particular seemed like it had owners who didn't take good care of it. I kept walking, swaying from side to side with a bottle in one hand and a bag in the other. The dog was walking behind me on the sidewalk, making grunting sounds. It was growling as a warning and snarling with its ears up and its tail raised. I'm into dogs, and I like watching shows like The Dog Whisperer. Even though I was pretty drunk, I could recall that when a dog acts like this, it's not a good sign. There were some bins, about 3 or 4 stacked together, forming a kind of pile. They were on top of each other and placed next to a tree. But, of course, the dog started running after me. I understand I have to get off the ground to have any chance. I climbed onto these bins and was maybe about 4 or 5 feet high. Not nearly enough to escape the dog, but like I mentioned, they led up to a big tree. It was like a small young pine tree, but it was still big, going at least 15 to 20 feet high. I climbed onto the first branch and started screaming right away. I tossed my water bottle at the dog's nose, but it didn't help and made things worse. By now, the dog had changed from growling and sneaking up on me to barking and going wild. I recall a light turning on in the house that owned the dog. The owner came out. He was an overweight man who seemed really drunk, just like me. He was the one who had left the dog outside by mistake and almost got me attacked. He tried to calm his dog down, but it didn't work. Then he went back into his yard. If I fall right now, it's over, and it would take maybe 10 or 20 minutes for the police to arrive and get this dog off me. The owner came back out with a chain and finally chained the dog up. The owner said sorry and then stumbled back inside with his dog. Then he slammed the shed door and locked the gate. I knew this was my chance, so I fell out of the tree and tried to gather whatever energy I had left to run away. I almost stumbled a couple of times, but managed to get home quickly. Finally, I made it through the door, feeling so relieved to be home. When I was 14, my mom and dad went away for the weekend, leaving me home alone. Now I'm 17, so this happened a few years ago. I was excited to be on my own because, it's cool to have the house to yourself. My parents are nice, but I just wanted some me time. But guess what? That weekend became one of the scariest times I've ever experienced, and it still haunts me today. It was Friday afternoon, and my parents went away when I was still at school. So when I got home, I went upstairs to my room and started playing on my Xbox. I was chatting with friends in the game. After a while, I ordered pizza and got ready for a night of playing games. At about midnight, I was still playing my game when I heard a weird sound outside. It sounded like rustling in the bushes or trees. At first, I thought it was just the wind, so I ignored it and went back to my game. But the noise didn't stop. I paused my game and listened closely. I peeked out my second-story window and saw a shadow moving around on the side of the house. Then, I saw the shape of a man in our yard. We had a fence and a gate around it, so it wasn't usual for someone we didn't know to be there. After a few seconds, I heard a loud bang at the front door. I got really scared. I went down the stairs slowly to the front window and looked out. I couldn't see anything, but I heard more sounds from outside. I didn't know what to do. I was alone by myself, and someone seemed to be trying to get into my house. I thought about calling the police, but I didn't want to bother them if it was nothing serious. The noises stopped for a bit, and I started to feel a little better, but then I heard footsteps again from outside. I opened the front door and checked around, but there was nothing unusual. I took a short walk around outside, checking the corners of the yard, and then returned inside. Feeling a bit more at ease, I climbed the stairs. I was looking forward to playing a few extra games before calling it a night, but when I put on my headset, that's when I thought I heard a strange noise coming from my parents' room. Maybe I was just scared from earlier, but I thought it's better to be safe than sorry. I looked around the corner into my parents' bedroom, and that's when I saw it. A figure standing there in the dark. I felt my body shaking, and it was hard to breathe. I wanted to scream, but I was too scared to make any noise. So I moved back slowly. I wanted to leave the room without him seeing me. All of a sudden, the man turned around and saw me. I couldn't move. My eyes were stuck on his. He was a guy of regular height and had on a big winter jacket and blue jeans. He started walking toward me, and I turned to run. I raced down the stairs and out the front door. I kept running until I was a few blocks away. I took out my phone and called 911. The police came, and we went back to the house together. They looked around and found the person who broke in. He was still in my parents' room. The police took him out and put him in the back of their car, but he kept looking down at the ground the whole way there. The police stayed with me all night, and my parents came back the next day as soon as they could. They were really surprised when I told them what happened. We spent the day fixing things and cleaning up the mess the intruder made. It took me a while to feel okay at night, but every little noise scared me. I was afraid to be by myself, so it took a long time for me to feel secure again. Even now, I still don't understand why he broke into our house that night. Maybe he was just a random thief, or maybe he had been watching our house for a long time. I live in a pretty big town near Niagara Falls. Not many bad things happen where I live, but on the east side, there's a lot of trouble. I know because I used to live there, and it was not good. So my family and I moved to a nice place in the suburbs on the west side. Well, during that time, something happened that I will never forget. I was by myself at home on a nice summer day. I was outside doing some chores like I was told to do the night before. When I was almost done cutting the grass, a man came onto my driveway. I looked at him strangely because this was our property, and people don't usually just walk onto your place. I asked him if he needed anything. He stopped for a moment and didn't say anything at all. Then, after a few seconds, he just started running away. I didn't think much of it and went back inside. It was a little weird, though. Later that night, I went to the store at the end of my street. When I walked in, I saw the man again. I told him I had to go, but he just stood in my way, blocking my path. "Are your parents home?" he asked with a grin. I responded, "Yeah, they are." He didn't say a word, but I said, "Is there something I can help you with?" He simply stared at me. To my luck, the cashier came out and told him not to block the exit. I got out of there like I saw a ghost with eyes as big as marbles. What kind of adult asks a child if their parents are home? That seemed too strange and suspicious, so I hurried home with the quickness. Later that evening, I got tired and wanted to take a nap. I fell asleep fast, already forgetting about what happened at the store. But then, not too long after, I woke up to someone banging on my door. I checked the clock, and it was 1:30 in the morning. I peeked out the window, but I couldn't see anyone. I thought maybe it was a friend or a neighbor who needed help. I was innocent and hoping for the best, not thinking about any possible dangers. But why would my friend, or anyone for that matter, be here so late? And why were they in my locked backyard? If they needed help, it would be easiest to come to the front door. So I ran downstairs and turned on the backyard light. That was a big mistake. It was the man from the corner store. The man who had walked up to me while I was mowing. I jumped back and screamed really loud. The man smashed his elbow into the door and it popped off. I tried calling 911, but my phone was dead. I should have kept it on the charger. I kept yelling at him and said I was calling the police, but I think he knew better. Perhaps he noticed my phone wasn't lighting up or making any sounds, or maybe he didn't care. It might have meant that he needed to finish his job faster. He began pushing the door, slowly breaking it. By then I was crying and I ran upstairs. I heard the man break inside. I looked at my phone again just to be sure. The logo screen was on. When I rushed upstairs, I turned it on and it wasn't dead. It was just off. I felt so much better, but I was still in trouble. The home screen seemed to take forever to load, but when it did, I called 911 right away. Then I explained my situation and they told me I needed to stay on the line. I could hear the man yelling up to me. "You were lying. I don't see any parents here." I quickly climbed into the small space at the back of my closet and closed it tightly. My sweaty body probably smelled like fear. I was shaking as he walked in. He started banging on everything. This man was not stable. After he couldn't find me upstairs, he looked even crazier and he ran back downstairs trying to find me. Soon, I heard several cars stopping near my house, then the sound of footsteps running out of the house in a hurry. It seems the cops saw him pretending to be calm, just walking casually out of the house. But they caught him and took him to jail. Then they asked me questions and later accused the man. That guy was really not right in the head. He had some illness that even now, I still can't pronounce. I'm 21 now and I'm living happily. But since that happened, being alone in my house feels a bit scarier than it used to. If you're curious, that man didn't get any jail time. Because of his disorder, it was like a small punishment. But the way he looked at me that night makes me think he might try it again. And maybe next time, he'll get the person he's after. This story happened back in 1993 when I was only 6 years old. This event traumatized me so much that I'm not sure if it was all just a dream or my imagination going wild. Or it might have been something scary trying to frighten me when I tried to sleep alone in the dark. I lived with both my mom and dad in a big trailer which was brand new. It didn't have any creepy history or bad things happening in it before, and I don't think it was haunted. So what I think happened to me was either real or just a bunch of super vivid and real feeling bad dreams. Maybe it was because I watched too much Tales from the Crypt. This experience is the reason why I have some slight uneasiness when it comes to dark hallways and shadowy corners. Now, before I share the story, let me say now that I'm well aware of how ridiculous and oddly hilarious some of this will be. Even though I'm still nervous about the dark, I can easily say I can laugh about some of this story now. Anyway, I could never sleep in my bedroom alone at night, even with a nightlight on. I always wanted to sleep in my parents' room, either in bed with them or on a pile of blankets on their floor. This was before my little sister was born, so I was the only child in the house at that time. It was really quiet and kind of creepy. I always heard strange sounds. My 6-year-old brain easily imagined terrifying things, like clothes in the closet turning into monsters, or scary stuff under my bed or outside the window. But then, my parents said I had to stop running into their room at night because my dad needed good sleep for work. He had to wake up at 4 a.m. every day, so I had to start sleeping on the couch in the living room, which was close to my parents' room. But I was still too scared to sleep alone in my bedroom. The living room and my parents' room were separated by a hallway. That's when things got really scary. Every night after my parents went to sleep, I would often hear someone whispering my name from somewhere behind my head. Listening to the whispering happened every night. I could usually fall asleep if I ignored it for a while. But one night, I actually saw the thing that was saying my name. There it was, standing in the hallway and looking at me. It was really tall, almost 7 feet. It wore a long black cloak and had a black face with horns and bright red glowing eyes. I was so scared that I couldn't move or talk. I just stared at it for what felt like a long time. Then it talked again. Its mouth opened, showing lots of small, sharp teeth, and it whispered my name in a rough voice once more. I covered myself with the blankets and stayed low, feeling really scared. I hoped it would leave and let me sleep peacefully. The next thing I knew, I opened my eyes and the sun was shining. I had made it till morning. What a huge relief. I thought it was just a bad dream then, not wanting to believe how real it felt. After that, I spent the whole day playing and watching TV, trying not to think about it. I didn't even remember the entity until it was nighttime again. I set up my bed on the couch just like the night before and closed my eyes tightly, trying to sleep. My parents were already asleep and it was dark in the house. And once again, it happened. I heard my name being whispered in that same creepy voice. I turned to look, feeling really scared, and there it was, that monster with red eyes, just staring at me with a face that showed no feelings. It stayed as still as the shadows around it. This part might seem a bit funny depending on how you see it. But back then, I was so scared that I couldn't even catch my breath. The thing opened its mouth, showing its pointed teeth, and hissed at me. I screamed, jumped off the couch, and ran all the way to my bedroom. I turned on the light and slammed my door shut. My dad came in a moment later and asked what was happening. I told him that a scary monster with red eyes was trying to take my pillow. My dad smiled and told me it was just a bad dream. He said I could keep the bedroom light on for the night, but not to wake them up by screaming again. Normally, I couldn't sleep in my bedroom alone because my parents' room was all the way at the other end of the 80-foot trailer. But I was so tired, so I ended up falling asleep, only waking up when the sun was shining. But of course, the next night, I couldn't get to sleep in my own room again. I made my bed on the couch long after my parents had gone to bed. You'd think I wouldn't want to sleep near the dark hallway again, but my parents' room was right on the other side of it. Back then, it felt way better to be near the dark hallway rather than being alone in my room. But once more, I heard and saw the monster with those bright red eyes. "Where's my pillow, Brock?" it said. "Why do you want my pillow?" I asked, but it didn't give me an answer. It just kept repeating itself like before. It made a loud, impatient screech at me. It scared and annoyed me so much that I grabbed one of the throw pillows from the couch. "Here, take your stupid pillow," I shouted. It went straight into the hallway and hit the monster right in the face. It let out a surprised hiss before disappearing into the shadows. I sat there for a moment, looking into the hallway, knowing it was still there because the pillow had hit something and fallen down. I heard one of my parents say something unclear, and I realized I must have woken them up with my shouting again. I listened for a while, half expecting to hear a creepy whisper, but it never happened. Eventually, I fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up thinking that the previous night was just a strange and again very vivid dream. I stretched, rubbed my eyes, and got off the couch. Then I happened to look over and saw the same pillow that I had thrown, right where the red-eyed monster had been standing. It had to be real, I thought to myself. Or was it all in my imagination? That was the last time I saw the red-eyed hallway demon. It just wanted a pillow for some reason.